Expansion was discussed both at a committee level and at the board, and ultimately the league office was tasked by our board with doing an in-depth analysis.
Welcome back. WNBA fans, something major is unfolding around Caitlin Clark, Adam Silver, and the league. After the latest move involving Clark and the New York Liberty, Silver has now addressed the situation and made his position known. So, what exactly happened, and why is Adam Silver's latest decision getting so much attention across the WNBA? Let's jump straight into today's video and break everything down. Professional basketball has suddenly shifted in a way that almost no one saw coming. It all centers around one name that has been talked about for months. Behind the scenes, one of the most powerful figures in the sport was preparing a carefully planned move. While everyone else was focused on statistics and shooting percentages, Adam Silver has now stepped in, and the decision he recently made involving Caitlin Clark has sent shockwaves through league front offices. For years, the WNBA operated with a slow growth mindset and a long list of restrictions. However, that period began to change when Silver decided to look at the league as a major part of the NBA's future rather than simply treating it like a side project. The reality of this decision goes far beyond marketing and jersey sales. If you enjoy this content, consider giving this video a like and subscribing to the channel. Believe it or not, more than 73% of viewers still haven't subscribed. It's completely free and only takes a second, but it means a lot to us. So, have you subscribed already? Great, thank you so much for your support. Now, back to the video. The way the game is managed has been fundamentally changed, and not everyone is happy with this new direction. The sudden shift in priorities feels like a slap in the face to veterans who spent decades helping build this league. However, from a business perspective, the numbers help explain the decision. Silver came to believe that the Caitlin Clark phenomenon was much more than a temporary trend. A serious level of protection was considered necessary because the potential financial value could reach billions. This was not simply a suggestion or a small warning to WNBA leadership. This new approach could affect how the game is promoted, officiated, and even presented to audiences. Silver chose to focus on the massive financial opportunity, leaving everyone else to figure out where they fit into this new global picture. When Clark first stepped onto the professional court, everyone expected there to be an adjustment period. However, almost no one expected the level of hostility that seemed to follow her every step. What were supposed to be normal welcome to the league moments began to look more like targeted attacks instead of ordinary competition. From mid-court contact to obvious fouls that looked more like football tackles, the situation kept getting harder to ignore. At that point, the league office had to make a decision that could shape the future of the sport for years to come. According to reports, Silver concluded that the let-them-play approach could hurt the league's business after watching one of its biggest stars get knocked down game after game. Any veteran who tried to establish herself as an enforcer against the rookie sensation could now find herself under greater attention because of this new approach. Many players believe the rules are being adjusted in real time to protect one player, and that belief has created a major divide inside locker rooms. However, the ratings help explain why such a decision would be considered. Clark's games attract dramatically larger audiences than many regular WNBA contests. The league also cannot afford to see its biggest attraction sitting on the bench because of an injury caused by unnecessary physical play. As a result, this protection-focused approach has completely changed the flow of the game. The style is now faster, higher scoring, and more focused on the perimeter. That is exactly the kind of basketball Silver has been promoting in the NBA for years. During the Olympic selection process, however, the pressure finally reached a breaking point. A moment that the league still has not been fully forgiven for by many fans. At first, it looked like a simple basketball decision, with Clark being placed behind more experienced players in the selection order. However, people inside the industry have suggested a much more calculated reason for her exclusion. Rumors began circulating that the league office, with strong influence from NBA advisors, actually wanted her to remain at home. But why would they want their biggest young star to stay away from the international stage? The answer is fairly simple: control and managing her workload. The WNBA had a unique opportunity to control her schedule and believed keeping her in the United States would help prevent her from becoming exhausted before the most valuable part of the season. It was a calculated move that placed the league's financial interests ahead of the individual player's opportunity to build her global legacy. The decision surprised many fans because it suggested that Clark's natural development was not the only thing being considered by the people making these decisions. With the league preparing to benefit from a new multi-billion-dollar television deal, they wanted to make the most of every moment she was available. Fans felt misled by the immediate backlash, but from a business perspective, the result was a refreshed and motivated superstar who returned to the court and continued setting major viewership records. Speaking of that television deal, the size of the new $2.2 billion agreement has significantly changed the balance of power between the NBA and WNBA. For years, the WNBA was often viewed as a league that needed financial support just to break even. But because of the Clark effect, Silver was able to use the increased attention and rookie numbers as an important negotiating point with Disney, NBC, and Amazon. The difficult part of this decision was that it pushed the WNBA's own leadership into more of a supporting role. Silver stepped forward and made it clear that the WNBA had become an important part of the NBA's international media strategy. That means better production quality, more nationally televised games, and a move away from the league's old image as a niche sports product. The NBA's corporate operation is now paying much closer attention to the league. While the extra money could be a major benefit for players and their future earnings, every technical foul, controversial post, and locker room dispute is now treated with the same level of attention as a major LeBron James or Stephen Curry storyline. The league has entered a much bigger spotlight. Silver has made it clear that anyone who refuses to adapt to the new professional standard could eventually be left behind, turning the WNBA into a much more serious business asset. One of the clearest changes in this new era was the sudden push for charter flights across the league. WNBA players had dealt with the difficult realities of commercial travel for years, including crowded seats, long security lines, and constant delays. The cost of private travel had always been used as a reason to avoid making the change. But when security concerns surrounding Clark's massive crowd started making headlines on a regular basis, Silver and the league board suddenly changed direction. Tens of millions of dollars were approved for private travel, forcing teams to upgrade their operations much faster than expected. While this was a major improvement for player health, safety, and comfort, smaller market teams were hit hard because many of them were not prepared for such a large increase in expenses. Comfort, however, was not the only reason behind the decision. It was a clear statement of intent. Silver was showing the sports world that the WNBA was no longer being treated as a second-tier league. If the WNBA wants to present itself as a major global sports brand, it has to look like one, even if that means spending money before the league has fully earned it. This spend-now-to-grow approach is typical of Silver's business strategy, but it also represents a major and potentially risky change for women's professional sports. However, the most controversial part of this new direction may be the rapid expansion plan that has now been accelerated. Silver does not simply want the league to survive, he wants it to become much bigger. The WNBA is expanding at a pace that has raised concerns about whether the level of talent could become spread too thin as new teams arrive in Portland, Toronto, and Golden State. For current players, the difficult reality is that their roster spots could soon be affected by expansion drafts, potentially changing the competitive balance of the league. The push to take advantage of the Clark era while the attention is still at its peak is directly connected to this rapid expansion. More jerseys to sell, more games, more teams, and more opportunities for the league to grow. More markets, more inventory, and more opportunities are now considered necessary for the league's future. What shocked many people was how quickly the gradual expansion strategy was abandoned once Clark's jersey became one of the biggest selling items in professional sports. There is now growing concern about what the next collective bargaining agreement will actually look like, because current players are facing a situation where the business side of the league is changing faster than the players' union can respond. The administration's handling of the growing rivalry and jealousy storylines has also changed the league's internal culture. The WNBA once placed a strong focus on unity and sisterhood, but Silver's team has recognized that drama attracts attention. Using the competition between Clark and other high-profile rookies like Angel Reese as part of the story has been a major shift from the league's traditional marketing approach. Instead of trying to reduce the tension, the league is now highlighting the competition to increase social media engagement, interest, and ticket sales. This NBA-style approach to marketing has created plenty of internal tension. Some players feel they are being turned into villains simply to strengthen the hero story surrounding the league's newest superstar. But the results are difficult to ignore. Silver's decision to lean into conflict-driven marketing is producing levels of attention that would have seemed almost impossible just 2 years ago, and the league has never experienced this much public involvement. As the latest series of decisions begins to settle, the Commissioner's office has sent a very clear message. The WNBA is no longer being treated simply as a development project. The harsh reality of market value has replaced the old idea that players must slowly earn their place in this high-stakes business. In just one season, Adam Silver's involvement has effectively pushed the league forward by years. And despite the obvious growing pains, the possible rewards are enormous. Every major decision involving Caitlin Clark now represents something much bigger because it reflects the direction the entire sport could take in the future. There is no easy way back. Whether fans support this new direction or miss the days when the league felt more closely connected, the difficult choices being made right now are building toward a WNBA that could eventually have cultural influence similar to the NBA. And that journey began when Silver decided that protecting and maximizing the value of his biggest asset was worth taking major risks. Players may be frustrated and the league may be surprised by the speed of these changes, but the world is watching more closely than ever. And in the sports business, attention is one of the most important measures of success. These decisions could have lasting effects, especially as a new generation of athletes begins to see the WNBA as a realistic and profitable professional career instead of something that once felt almost impossible to reach. The tension between younger players and the established veterans is not going away anytime soon. If anything, the pressure will increase as the stakes become higher and the league's decisions become more aggressive. Now that Silver has placed his bets on this new direction, everyone in the basketball world has to deal with the hand they have been given. The real question is whether the league can continue growing at this incredible speed without losing the identity that made it special in the first place. One thing is already clear. The WNBA that fans knew a year ago is being replaced by a faster, more dramatic, and potentially far more profitable version of the game, and this transformation may only be getting started. The biggest question now is how far the Commissioner is willing to go to make sure the Caitlin Clark era continues for as long as possible. Because the moves that have shocked the league today may only be the beginning of a much larger transformation that could reshape women's basketball on a global scale. The changes in officiating alone have already created frustration inside locker rooms. Imagine being told overnight that officials are expected to protect the rookie from excessive contact after players have spent years competing in a physical style of basketball. Silver's message was clear: protect the star who is driving the attention. Clark may have been the catalyst for this change, but the decision was not only about her. The league office also realized that casual viewers are not tuning in to watch slow, overly physical battles. They want fast transitions, open shots, and deep three-pointers from the logo. Silver effectively pushed the WNBA toward a more offense-friendly NBA style by encouraging officials to tighten the whistle. Coaches who built their entire defensive systems around physical play considered the change extremely difficult. Within just a few weeks, many of them were forced to rethink strategies they had developed over years. The speed with which the league began enforcing the new approach was almost as surprising as the rules themselves. Referees who supported the new open style of basketball were now expected to enforce it consistently. Referees who followed the new approach were given more important assignments, while those who did not follow it faced much stronger criticism. This naturally made players nervous. Some began accusing the league of being tilted toward its newest star because they felt they could barely make contact with Clark without hearing a whistle. However, the league viewed the change as necessary for the future of the product. A player capable of pulling up from 40 feet cannot spend most of the game trapped in physical contact. The goal is to give her enough freedom to create the moments that quickly spread across social media. Silver understands the value of that viral attention. Every time Clark hits an unbelievable shot or creates a major highlight, the league gains more attention and potentially more commercial value. But there is a cost to that growth. Defensive specialists around the league increasingly feel like their style of basketball belongs to another era. According to alleged leaked internal memos, the NBA was placing entertainment value ahead of the traditional toughness that had always defined the WNBA. For many people, that felt like the ultimate betrayal of the league's original identity. The game was built around earning every basket, fighting for every possession, and playing through physical challenges. Now, some critics see it as more of a polished show designed to highlight one particular superstar. But newer fans are not necessarily focused on how the game used to look. They want the excitement, the big moments, and the feeling of being part of something special. Silver is making sure those moments are presented in the most exciting and professional way possible. The strange part is that some of the league's best defenders now feel nervous about doing their jobs too aggressively. They understand that a hard foul on Clark could bring more than a free throw or a foul call. It could turn them into the villain of a week-long media story. That psychological pressure has become part of the league's new approach. Instead of officially changing every rule, the league can influence the product by creating an environment where star players are treated as extremely valuable. The NBA took decades to develop this kind of star treatment. From the Jordan era through the LeBron era, it became part of the sports culture over many years. In the WNBA, however, a similar shift appears to be happening in real time within a single season. The system has been shaken dramatically. Teams are now being forced to rethink almost every part of their scouting reports. Do they continue playing extremely physical defense, or do they focus on scoring more points than the opponent? Increasingly, the second option appears to be winning. Television partners have also pushed for more high-scoring and entertaining games, and Silver has responded by moving the product closer to the modern NBA style. The financial impact could be enormous. As league revenue grows, the salary cap could eventually rise as well. 5 years from now, some of the players complaining about these changes today could potentially be earning contracts worth $20 million or more. But right now, the transition is uncomfortable because it affects their reputation, their roles, and the way they have played basketball for years. Veterans are feeling the pressure most strongly because they are being asked to make room for a new era. The league office has not handled this transition quietly either. There have been several clear lines drawn in the sand. As Silver's team has made clear, people are either willing to support the new vision or they risk being left behind by it. The WNBA once operated with a much closer relationship between players and league leadership, so this kind of top-down approach feels very different. A corporate sense of urgency has replaced much of that old cooperative attitude. There is now a belief that the league cannot waste its limited window of opportunity by moving too slowly or allowing sentiment to control major decisions. That helps explain why the decision surrounding Clark created such a strong reaction. They represented the end of the WNBA as a smaller, player-driven league and the beginning of a league that wants to become a major force in global sports media. The effects of that transformation are being felt throughout the basketball world. The WNBA is becoming more attractive to international players who want to be part of the Clark era, while leagues around the world are paying closer attention to what is happening in the United States. Clark herself is also under enormous pressure because she is no longer viewed simply as another basketball player. She has become the center of an entire sports business. Every league decision involving her is examined for possible favoritism, while almost everything she does receives intense attention. Yet Silver has continued moving forward despite the criticism. He understands that history will likely judge this era by what the league becomes rather than by the frustration felt by players who experienced the WNBA before its massive growth. The harsh reality is that professional sports are businesses as much as they are games. For perhaps the first time, the WNBA is being managed like a major high-stakes sports company, and the results have been impossible to ignore. A rookie from Iowa and a commissioner with a careful and calculated vision helped push the league toward a future that once seemed far away. The road ahead now looks more promising than many people could have imagined. The game is faster, the attention is greater, and the stakes are much higher. Even though the journey has included decisions that have shaken the foundation of the sport, the biggest questions are still ahead. When the next major young star enters the league, how will the WNBA treat her? Will that player receive the same level of promotion and protection, or was this entire approach created specifically because of Clark? Team relationships are still changing, and rival leagues are watching closely. But one thing is becoming clear. The WNBA is no longer simply trying to catch up with the rest of professional sports. It is beginning to set the pace. Once the initial shock fades, a new reality will take shape where the major decisions being made today could eventually become standard practice. The league took aggressive steps to survive, grow, and compete at a higher level, and in the process, it may have permanently changed the way the game is played.